Greetings and salutations, fellow book readers. This is Mark from Living and Reading. The book I will review today is Heart of Darkness. Before we continue, this is personalized limited edition of the Heart of Darkness with leather cover designed and made by me. At the end of the video, I will tell you a couple of ways of how you can get one for yourself if you are interested. Now let's get back to the review. Heart of Darkness is a short novel written by Joseph Conrad that was originally published in 1899 as a monthly magazine series. It is, argumentatively, Conrad's best and most complex work. The psychological foundation of it is built on Conrad's own difficult and oppressed childhood, and knowing a bit of his biography might help to understand the novel better. Joseph Conrad was born in the Polish part of the Russian Empire. Both of his parents participated in an uprising against the Tsar and were exiled east, where they died. This traumatic event taught young Conrad about oppression and the suffering it creates, and this had profound influence on his adult life, which seemed one long escape from his childhood, physically through traveling and psychologically through writing. Now, what is Heart of Darkness about? Well, this might be a tough question to answer. On the surface, it is about the impact of the European colonialism in Africa on the individual Europeans, but I believe the main purpose of the book is the study of the dark side of the human psychology and impulses and how they relate to our behavior. The book is also about the corrupting effects of power and crossing psychological limits and the difficulty of going back. I would say it is important to remember that the book takes place in Africa, but is not really about Africans. If you focus too much on the suffering of the Africans and the transgressions committed against them, then you will miss the main theme of the book, which is the individual and his struggles with the inner dark impulses. There are books about the effects of the European colonizations in Africa on the local population, but this is not one of them. Heart of Darkness was inspired by Conrad's own experiences when sailing up the Congo River, and the events and behaviors he saw left a deep mark on him, which he later explored in his writings. I think the phrase, "we live as we dream, alone," underlines the book's mood, the idea that each one of us struggles alone, because the struggle is not with the world, but with ourselves. Now, a bit of the plot. The whole narration takes place aboard a ship anchored on the River Thames near London. There, Marlowe, who might be somewhat of the alter ego of Conrad, tells the story about his time as a captain of a steamboat on the River Congo. He's hired by a Belgian ivory trading company in Brussels and takes a French steamer bound for Africa, and after a long journey arrives at one of the company's trading posts. The place is busy with exploding and removing rocks to clear the path for the railroad. Marlowe looks for shade under the trees and enters what he calls the gloomy circle of some inferno, which is full of Africans who used to work on the railroad, but now sick, are laying around waiting to die. At the trading post, Marlowe meets the company's accountant, who tells him about Mr. Kurtz and describes him as a highly respected agent in charge of a very important trading post, who sends more ivory than all other agents put together. Marlowe moves onto the central station further inland, where he is supposed to take possession of his steamboat, but finds out that the boat has been damaged, so he spends the next few months waiting for it to be repaired. During that time, he hears more about Kurtz and learns that he is sick and has been mismanaging his station. So the company decided to recall him and have him tried. He realizes that while some people admire Kurtz, others resent him. Finally, Marlowe gets on their way, and after a couple of months' journey, as he approaches Kurtz's station, the boat is attacked and the African helmsman is killed, which leads Marlowe to some profound reflections. Once at the station, Marlowe is met by one of Kurtz's admirers, a Russian vagabond who tells him that Kurtz has a godlike statue among the natives and they protect him. After overcoming a few obstacles, Kurtz, who is seriously sick, is taken on board. Later he escapes back to his hut, but is brought back to the boat, where against the wishes of the natives, Marlowe decides to sail back to the central station. Once on the way, Kurtz's health gets progressively worse and he gives Marlowe some papers and tells him to hide them from the officials at the central station, and then delivers his famous phrase, "The horror, the horror." After returning to Europe, Marlowe's mood is rather sore and contemptuous. A few people come by looking for Kurtz's papers, but Marlowe passes them on to a journalist to have them published. He also visits Kurtz's fiancée to deliver the news about her sweetheart, and that's the basic plot. What are my thoughts about Heart of Darkness? Well, the novel is difficult to understand. It might be because of Conrad's complex way of expressing his thoughts. And that's what you get when you think in Polish and write in English. The book is full of metaphors and indirectly compares historical events such as Roman conquest of Britain to European colonizations of Africa. The title is a metaphor where the darkness is human nature, but presented as Africa, and Congo is the heart, where the darkness originates and spreads to the rest of the body. The darkness or Africa is portrayed as a kind of earthly hell where the Europeans go after they sell their soul. It is said in the book that the fool will not sell his soul to the devil because he is too much of a fool. So Conrad implies it takes intelligence and effort to be bad. Kurtz is one of those who sold his soul, but as with most people, he realized that it wasn't worth it and wants it back. He fails because he somewhat misplaced the blame and cuts himself from the world, but not from himself, thus taking his personal hell with him. Kurtz is a symbol that represents Europeans in Africa, as we can infer from this quote. In his veins flows the blood of all of Europe. He represents our struggles between good and evil, and his memorable words, the horror, were an admission of his failure and the judgment on the life he lived. So Kurtz doesn't succeed in redeeming himself, but the hope is that Marlowe can. Marlowe is on a journey of self-discovery, but he doesn't realize it. When he hears about Kurtz, he develops an obsessive need to talk to him, as if Kurtz was holding a secret to his own existence. Marlowe doesn't imagine Kurtz as a physical being, but as a voice, and there seems to develop, even before they meet, a kind of student-master relationship between the two. He sees Kurtz as somebody who was able to extract himself from the world he inhabits. So Marlowe's personal motivation for finding Kurtz is to find out how he did it and what he has become. He sees Kurtz's rebellious act as type of search for redemption, and wants to know if he found it, but has occasional doubts about the worth of the whole undertaking. When they finally reach Kurtz, Marlowe says, "I am not sure the life we found was worth the life we lost getting here." He's talking about his black helmsman who was killed during the journey, and this experience made Marlowe realize that he had become friends with the dead man, which put a dent in his view of the world and made him question his beliefs. The common complaint about Heart of Darkness is that Africans are not shown as individual human beings, but instead make a part of the background stage. Well, the book is not about interactions between Africans and Europeans, not even about European colonization, but rather about the dark side of the human nature, and the setting is there to make the message easier to understand and digest. The background could have been America during the Spanish conquest, and the moral of the story would be the same. It has been successfully done by Coppola in Apocalypse Now by changing the location and time period, but maintaining the message of the book. Another common misunderstanding about Heart of Darkness is that the writer is a racist and imperialist, such as claimed by a Nigerian writer, Chinua Achebe, in his critical essay about Conrad. To me, it seems as Achebe read the novel through the filter of his own prejudices and beliefs. I guess being a good writer doesn't automatically mean you're a good reader. I think because the book can be interpreted in various ways, you should be humble enough to acknowledge other possible conclusions, which might be contrary to your own. My personal opinion is that in Heart of Darkness and other writings, Conrad shows sympathy, even occasional empathy toward the oppressed, and he seems to mock the whole idea of European superiority. So it is not the novel that shows Conrad to be racist, but you as the reader decides whether he was or he wasn't. If you take racist and demeaning descriptions of the Africans uttered by Marlowe to be the voice of Conrad, then you will conclude that Conrad was racist. But if you assume Marlowe is purposely made to be racist as a critique of the European society, then Conrad will come across as anti-racist and anti-colonialist. We could ask Conrad about his intentions, but unfortunately he is dead. So the question is no more whether Heart of Darkness is racist, but how you, the reader, interpret it. People develop their own idea as to what Heart of Darkness is about, and based on this pass their judgment on the book. For me, Heart of Darkness is not about European colonialism and imperialism, but rather about the dark side of the human nature and how it can be brought out by external ideas such as racism and imperialism. Also, there is context. At the time of the book's writing, the beliefs and social norms were different from today's, and it needs to be taken into account. For me personally, the book has a mix of general racist views of that time and Conrad's somewhat sympathetic feelings toward the natives. To sum it up, Heart of Darkness is a difficult read, and its complex expressions and symbolism can be widely interpreted. As I mentioned before, it is helpful to know a bit about Joseph Conrad to understand his writings. Also, if you judge him with the 21st century moral standards and label Conrad as racist and imperialist, you will miss the book's purpose. Forget racism, trigger words, and all the other background noise, and instead focus on the book's theme. At least try to suspend your judgment until after you finish the book. And even if Conrad was a racist, does that make him any less of a great writer and automatically disqualifies the book's message? I would say no. I think many people who dislike Heart of Darkness do because they don't understand it, and it makes them feel a little dumb. So they dismiss it as a racist crap. To understand it, the book needs to be read and reread slowly and carefully with pauses for reflection. This is not as difficult as it sounds since the story is rather short, about 100 pages. If you don't do this, then you will see what you want to see, and that's the reason why there are so many contradictory opinions about the novel. Also, putting all the controversies to the side, Heart of Darkness is a beautiful example of early modern literature, The prose, the sentence structure, and the descriptive vocabulary combined together make for unique reading. It seems as Conrad has invented his own writing language, and in ways he did. I think the writing style, with Conrad's unique psychological perception, is what makes his book so popular. What other books would I compare Heart of Darkness to? I wouldn't. It is a singular work of literature. Instead, I would recommend the book's adaptation into cinema, specifically the before-mentioned Apocalypse Now, the 2001 version Redux with added footage. There is a part which takes place in a French plantation, and it gives the film a stronger connection to the book, and it makes its theme clearer. I also saw a 1990s adaptation of The Heart of Darkness with John Malkovich as Kurt, which was pretty good, but unfortunately I can't find it anymore. Anyway, read the book and form your own opinion before it gets consumed by the digital fire of the cancel culture. Okay, let's talk about the physical book. The book I am holding is a paperback which I transformed into a hardcover, leather-bound edition. To make the cover, I use grade A, naturally tan hide, I buy from a tanner in North Spain. It is the same leather Louis Vuitton uses to make his bags, so it is top quality. I do all the processing of the leather myself. At first, I designed the cover, which, what I did here, I took this image I found that reflects the connection between the human and physical nature and adapted it to the book. If you want to see a more detailed video where I explain how I transform paperback into hardcover, click on the link in the description. I will make a maximum of 100 editions of each title. Each one will be numbered and initialed, and the numbers will go in chronological order from 2 up, since number 1 stays with me. The price will be around $100, so if you would like me to make one for you, you can click below on my email and send me a message. I do not guarantee I will do it, since it will depend on the time I have available, access to leather, and if I can get my hands on the copy of the book. Now, if you're not willing to spend the $100, but you still want the book, what you can do is click below on the PayPal link and donate $3 or more to my channel, and for every 100 donations, I'll make a lottery and draw one name, and the winner will receive the book. So, if you are cheap but feel lucky, this might be the way to do it. Also, your donations give me the extra motivation to make the book reviews, and I appreciate them very much. So thank you in advance. And one more thing, when you make your donation, remember to include the title of the book you would like to win. The book itself is beautiful. Visually it has a very nice texture, it smells great, and the more you handle it, the more beautiful it will become. And it makes a great gift for yourself or somebody who appreciates books. So, if you want one, don't snooze or you might lose. Well, that's it, so let's end it here, and until next time, keep your ear close to the ground and read a book. Adios.